6-Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.
Hello, this is 6-Minute English from BBC Learning English. I'm Neil.
And I'm Beth.
Every country has its own favourite foods. So when people leave home and move to a different country, getting used to the new food there can be a surprise.
Food can have strange-sounding names. If you know what a toad is, it's an animal very similar to a frog. You might be surprised to hear that a famous English meal is toad in the hole. Don't worry though, it's made with sausages, not toads.
In this programme, we're exploring people's first impressions of a new culture through its food. We'll be hearing how two women, one a refugee, the other a dietitian, adapted to the food of their new home. And as usual, we'll be learning some useful new vocabulary too.
But first, I have a question for you, Neil. A British summer wouldn't be complete without a traditional cream tea. Scones, cream and jam, eaten with a cup of tea. It sounds lovely, but strangely there have been many arguments over cream teas. So, is the cream tea debate about A. Whether to drink tea or coffee, B. Whether to put cream or jam onto the scone first, or C. Whether strawberry or raspberry jam is better?
Well, I think the controversy is whether to add cream or jam first.
OK, Neil, I'll reveal the correct answer later in the programme. Natalia Tkachenko arrived in the Netherlands after leaving her home in Ukraine following the Russian invasion. She moved in with Veronika Groszewska, who's originally from Poland, and her family, starting them on a journey to open their own restaurant, Natalia's Kitchen. Here's Natalia talking with BBC World Service programme The Food Chain.
Of course, at first it felt like I am well out of what they call my comfort zone. When you stay in a certain environment, you get used to it. But when you move to another country where you live and work, you experience difficulties and you have to adapt to get used to local foods. Here they don't have some of the staples we had in Ukraine. Ingredients are different, and so you start working with local foods, find replacements, cook with what you have.
At first, Natalia felt out of her comfort zone, a familiar situation in which someone feels secure and in control. She had to adapt to her new life in the Netherlands. She had to change in order to succeed in her new situation.
Some of the staple ingredients Natalia used in Ukraine weren't available in the Netherlands. A staple is a basic and important type of food that is regularly eaten by a large portion of the population. So Natalia adapted her recipes, replacing Ukrainian with Dutch ingredients to create a new kind of cooking which her customers loved.
Our second story involves Rachel Winter-Roach, who left her home in England to work on the sunny island of Tobago in the southern Caribbean. Here Rachel explains some of the food challenges she faced to BBC World Service programme The Food Chain.
When I came out to the Caribbean, I was really in for a shock when it came to flavoring and seasoning food. And seasoning is really, really an integral part of food preparation here. Here, the seasoning is multiple layers. It took me a while to get used to it because everybody has their own way of seasoning and their own little tweaks. And there are no quantities, so it really takes a lot of practice, a lot of trial and error, and I think my family did not always appreciate the errors in the trials.
When Rachel moved to Tobago, she was in for a shock. The phrase "to be in for a shock" means to be sure of experiencing a surprising or unpleasant situation. In Rachel's case, the surprise involved seasoning, the salt, herbs and spices added to food to enhance the flavour.
In the Caribbean, seasoning is a big deal. Everyone has their own seasoning recipe, including little tweaks or small adjustments which they have added themselves. It took time for Rachel to develop her seasoning skills, mainly through trial and error, a way of solving problems by trying a number of different methods and learning from the mistakes you make along the way.
Whether you're fleeing war, starting a new job, or enjoying a cream tea, it seems there's lots to learn about a place from its food, including Britain. So I think it's time to reveal the answer to my question, Neil. Why is the traditional British cream tea controversial?
Well, I guessed it was because people disagree about whether cream or jam should go on the scone first.
Which was the correct answer. And anyone who says it's jam first is just wrong. Okay, let's recap the vocabulary we've learnt in this programme, starting with comfort zone, a situation in which you feel comfortable and in control.
To adapt means to change so as to successfully fit in with a new situation.
A staple is a basic and important type of food that is regularly eaten by a large portion of the population.
The phrase to be in for a shock means to be guaranteed to experience a surprising or unpleasant situation.
A tweak is a small adjustment to something in order to improve it.
And finally, if you solve a problem by trial and error, you try a number of different methods and learn from the mistakes you make. Once again, our 6 minutes are up, and remember to join us again next time here at 6 Minute English. Goodbye for now.
Bye!
6 Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.
Hello, this is 6 Minute English from BBC Learning English. I'm Phil.
And I'm Beth.
Most people have eaten some unusual food at least once in their life. What's the most unusual thing you've ever eaten, Beth?
Oh, I ate camel in Australia and I really didn't like it, to be honest. What about you?
I ate caiman in northern Argentina and it was delicious.
Oh, okay, good.
Well, in this programme, we'll be discussing some very unusual food known as forever food. Dishes like stews and soups which can be kept going day after day, year after year. We'll also be learning some useful new vocabulary, all of which you can download along with a worksheet for this programme at our website, bbclearningenglish.com.
But let's get back to forever food and a Bangkok restaurant called Watana Panik that's famous for a soup which has been cooking for over 50 years. Here's radio listener David Shirley, who called BBC World Service programme The Food Chain after tasting the soup himself.
No, I had never heard of a perpetual stew before, but the first time I'd ever heard about it was when I was in Bangkok. I found a stew that had been simmering for 50 years.
David tasted perpetual stew, a pot into which ingredients are placed and cooked continuously. The pot is never completely emptied. Instead, new ingredients and water are added when necessary and left simmering, cooking at a temperature just below boiling so that the food bubbles gently.
A 50-year-old soup might not be to everyone's taste, but forever foods are surprisingly common. And Phil, I have a question for you about Watana Panik's 50-year-old soup. What do you think is the main ingredient? Is it A, beef, B, chicken, or C, vegetables?
Ooh, I think vegetables. I think that's probably safer.
Okay, well, we'll find out the correct answer later in the programme. It's not just Bangkok where people cook forever foods. Fuchsia Dunlop is a writer and cook specialising in Chinese food. Here, she tells BBC World Service programme The Food Chain about a Chinese stew that is rumoured to be 100 years old.
In China, they sometimes, professionals talk about having a bainian lao lu, which means like 100-year-old broth. So I don't know if this is strictly true, but theoretically, as long as you have a good practice of hygiene, which is to say that you always skim it and boil it every day, and also replenish it as needed with more water, more salt, more spices, you keep tasting, then it just gets richer and richer.
Cooks need to replenish a forever stew, to fill it up again with fresh ingredients before it's completely eaten. By being regularly replenished, some dishes are rumoured to last 100 years.
Wow, that is a long time. Fuchsia doesn't know if it's strictly true, or completely true, that the same stew has really lasted 100 years, but she thinks it's possible in theory, as long as it's kept safe and hygienic through boiling.
Professor Martha Carlin is a historian with a special interest in medieval cookery. Here, she explains to BBC World Service programme The Food Chain why long-lasting foods could have been familiar to people in the Middle Ages.
In theory, it would make sense to think that people who didn't have matches or fire starters, for whom starting a fire from scratch was quite a cumbersome process, would naturally want to keep a stew pot bubbling if they had the means to do that, and to avoid the labor of constantly restarting the fire, and also to make sure that they had a hot meal waiting at any time.
Having hot food bubbling away on the fire means there is always something ready to eat and avoids having to start a fire from scratch. When you do something like cook food or make a fire from scratch, you do it from the beginning without the help of anything that has already been made.
Starting a fire is also cumbersome, an adjective meaning difficult to do, taking time and effort. But Professor Carlin says only rich families were able to afford enough wood to keep a fire going all day. Anyway, all this talk of food has made me hungry, Beth. So, what was the answer to your question?
I asked you what the main ingredient is in the Bangkok stew, and you said vegetables, and I'm afraid that's wrong. It was, in fact, beef. Okay, let's recap the vocabulary we've learnt in this programme about forever foods, such as perpetual stew, a pot of stew into which new ingredients are regularly added, allowing the dish to be eaten over a long time.
When food is simmering, it's cooking at a temperature slightly below boiling so that it bubbles gently.
The verb replenish means to fill something up again.
If something is not strictly true, it's not completely or entirely true.
When you do an activity such as cooking from scratch, you do it from the beginning without using anything that has already been made.
And finally, if an activity is cumbersome, it's difficult to do and takes a lot of time and effort. Once again, our 6 minutes are up. Remember to visit our website bbclearningenglish.com, where you'll find a worksheet and a quiz related to this programme. And we'll see you again soon for more trending topics and useful vocabulary here at 6 Minute English. Goodbye for now.
Bye!
6 Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.
Hello, this is 6 Minute English from BBC Learning English. I'm Neil.
And I'm Beth.
In China, they're crescent-shaped and filled with pork and cabbage. In Nepal, they're called momos and are fried with buffalo meat. In Ireland, they're soaked in Guinness gravy, and Italians fill them with spinach and call them gnocchi. They can be steamed or fried and are found all over the world. I'm talking, of course, about dumplings.
Dumplings are a group of dishes where a filling is wrapped inside pieces of cooked dough. They're basically dough envelopes with a filling inside. Fillings can be anything from meat and fish to vegetables, tofu or cheese, and the dough is usually based on a starchy grain like wheat, rice, corn or potato. In fact, the English word dumpling comes from a 17th century adjective, dump, meaning dough-like.
The really amazing thing about dumplings is that they're found all over the world. Over the centuries, different countries and regions have experimented with flavours and fillings to create something unique. Wherever in the world you are, there's probably a special kind of dumpling for you.
In this programme, we'll be sampling a dumpling from the West African country of Ghana. And as usual, we'll be learning some useful new vocabulary as well.
Great, but first I have a question for you, Beth. Probably the most famous British dumplings, suet dumplings, are cooked on top of a chicken or beef stew. They're made from suet, but what exactly is that? Is suet A, wheat, B, potato, or C, animal fat?
I think suet is made from animal fat.
OK, Beth, we'll find out if that's the correct answer later in the programme. The origins of dumplings are a mystery. Historians think the dish is very old, but no one knows for sure when or where the first dumpling was cooked. One theory puts the birthplace of the dumpling along the Silk Road, linking China with Central Asia and Turkey.
One way or another, the dumpling journeyed through the Middle East and across Africa to Ghana, where today it's a favourite way of adding carbohydrates to a dish, as well as soaking up sauces and juices. Kapui Ajda is a businesswoman and fan of the Ghanaian dumpling called kenki.
Here she introduces kenki to Ruth Alexander, presenter of the BBC World Service programme The Food Chain.
I love kenke. In fact, I had kenke this afternoon.
You've had some this afternoon?
Yes.
Oh, lovely. And it hits the spot?
Absolutely. And it's a Ganwet. The Ganwet is one of the tribes in Ghana. And kenke is their staple food, even though it's eaten across the whole country.
How is it then eaten?
Now, we have to eat kenke with what we call shito, chili sauce, okay? But we also have the black sauce. It's like with shrimps, fish, and all sort of proteins in it. And then, yum, yum, you go at it. You dig in.
So is this really satisfying comfort food?
It is very satisfying. In fact, kenke is loved by most people who do manual works because it fills the tummy and it takes you almost a whole day before you feel hungering again.
Kafui says eating kenke really hits the spot. If something hits the spot, it's exactly what you wanted and totally satisfies you.
Kenke dumplings are made from maize sourdough and eaten across Ghana. For some tribes, kenke is their staple food, a basic and important type of food that is regularly eaten by a large portion of the population. In Britain, for example, bread and eggs are staple foods.
Kenke takes time to make. The maize needs to be soaked in water for a week. But when they're ready and served with a hot chili sauce, Kafui uses two phrases to show it's time to eat. Yum yum is used to say that food tastes or smells very good, and dig in is another exclamation meaning don't wait, start eating, and eat as much as you like.
For Ghanaians, kenke is comfort food, something which is enjoyable to eat and makes you feel happier. And what's more, it fills your tummy or stomach.
Whatever type you eat and wherever in the world you eat them, dumplings are a great way to spread a little love, including in Britain.
Ah, yes, it looks like we're back to my earlier question. I asked you what the traditional British suet dumpling is made from. Beth guessed it was animal fat, which was the correct answer. Suet dumplings aren't the healthiest, but for some Brits, they're certainly comfort food. Food that makes you feel happier because it tastes good or because it reminds you of home.
OK, let's recap the rest of the vocabulary we've learnt in this programme, starting with the idiom hits the spot, meaning that something is satisfying and exactly what you wanted.
A staple food is a basic and important type of food that is regularly eaten by a large portion of the population.
The exclamation yum yum is used to say that food tastes or smells delicious.
If you say dig in, you're inviting someone to start eating as much as they want.
And finally, tummy is an informal word for stomach. Once again, our 6 minutes are up. But remember to join us again next time for more trending topics and useful vocabulary here at 6 Minute English. Goodbye for now.
Goodbye.
6 Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.
Hello, this is 6 Minute English from BBC Learning English. I'm Neil.
And I'm Beth. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Neil. Happy birthday to you.
Thank you, Beth, but it's not my birthday.
I know, but this programme is all about birthdays, or birthday cakes to be precise.
Ah, yes. The highlight of any birthday party is the birthday cake, blowing out the candles and making a wish.
Right. But things have changed a lot from the days when most birthday cakes were homemade, made at home and not bought from a shop. Nowadays, many birthday cakes are works of art, extravagant, edible creations designed and decorated to represent the person celebrating their birthday.
In this programme, we'll be hearing from two bakers, a famous TV chef who bakes simple but tasty cakes, and another who's designed personalised birthday cakes for celebrities, including Arnold Schwarzenegger. And as usual, we'll be learning some useful new vocabulary as well.
Sounds good. But first, I have a question for you, Neil. Everyone looks forward to their birthday, especially if there's cake. But according to the UK's Office for National Statistics, which is the most common month to be born? Is it A, March, B, July, or C, September?
That's an interesting question, and I'm going to guess it's September.
OK, Neil, I'll reveal the answer at the end of the programme. One of Britain's best-loved cake bakers is Dame Mary Berry. Here, she describes her perfect birthday cake to BBC Radio 4's The Food Programme.
My perfect cake would be something in lemon or orange, because those are my favourite flavours. I don't mind how higgledy-piggledy it is. Doesn't take a long time to do, but beautifully fresh and beautifully flavoured. Simple.
Mary Berry thinks a simple birthday cake is best. She doesn't mind if the decoration is higgledy-piggledy, mixed up, and in no particular order.
Yes, when it comes to birthday cakes, flavour is more important than decoration for Dame Mary Berry. But now a new generation of bakers is making cakes in a totally different way. The cakes Adam Cox makes in his East London bakery are truly fantastic-looking creations. Here's Adam speaking to BBC Radio 4's The Food Programme.
I get asked to do all sorts. Like my customers and clients are very generous with the leeway that they give me based on the past designs that I've made that they've seen. So they're happy to just leave it with me. I really just want to create something that will, last long in the memory for the person that I do it for. It's a real pleasure to have this as a job because, as I say, it gives me a lot of freedom to express myself creatively. So I really try and go above and beyond to give the client something that, they will be really happy with. And
Adam gets asked to make all sorts, meaning many different kinds of cakes. His customers, who want the cake to be a special part of a birthday party, give him lots of leeway, lots of freedom to make the cake the way he wants to. Adam finds out about the person's interests and hobbies and uses these to come up with decoration ideas.
Adam loves his job. It gives him the freedom to express himself creatively, and he enjoys seeing his customers' reaction when the finished cake is revealed. Adam goes above and beyond to satisfy his customers. If you go above and beyond, you do something with more effort than would normally be expected.
And the results of Adam's extra effort? Birthday cakes which last long in the memory. A phrase describing something which creates such a strong impression that it's remembered for a long time.
Or at least until the following year when another birthday comes around and it's time to start baking all over again.
And speaking of birthdays coming around, what was the answer to your question, Beth? You asked me which was the most common month to be born in the UK.
And you guessed it was September, which was the correct answer. Babies born in the UK peak in September. Right, let's recap the vocabulary from this programme, starting with homemade, an adjective describing something which is made at home and not bought from a shop.
If something is higgledy-piggledy, it's mixed up and in no particular order.
The phrase all sorts means many different kinds of something, like the sweets called licorice all sorts, which come in different shapes and colours.
If someone gives you leeway to do something, they give you the freedom to do it the way you want to.
The idiom to last long in the memory means to create such a strong effect that it's remembered for a long time.
And finally, when someone goes above and beyond, they do something with much more effort than would usually be expected. Once again, our 6 minutes are up. If your birthday is coming up, we hope you have a cake with candles and make a wish to join us again soon for more trending topics and useful vocabulary here at 6 Minute English. Goodbye for now.
Bye.
6 Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.
Hello, this is 6 Minute English from BBC Learning English. I'm Phil.
And I'm Beth.
Love it or hate it, there's no doubt fast food is popular. Are you a fast food fan, Beth?
Not really, no. I think sometimes it can be quite convenient, obviously because it's quick, but not really.
Well, whatever you think about them, fast food brands like KFC, Domino's, and of course the big one, McDonald's, are incredibly successful.
In this programme, we'll be discussing the global spread of fast food from its beginnings in 1950s America. As usual, we'll be learning some useful new words and phrases.
But first, I have a question for you, Beth. Roughly how many fast food restaurants are there in the UK? Is it A, 4,000, B, 42,000, or C, 4 million?
I'm going to go for B, 42,000.
OK, well, later on we'll find out the answer. In the United States, cheap and easy food like hamburgers, French fries and milkshakes have been popular since the 1950s. Listen as Adam Chandler, author of the book Drive-Thru Dreams, which traces the history of American fast food, tells BBC World Service programme The Food Chain how it all got started.
At the heart of the story of fast food is a very anyone-can-do-this sense. A lot of the company founders didn't have a college degree, who didn't have a high school degree in a lot of instances, didn't come from money, were oftentimes just people who were ready to plug themselves into a system that would work for them. And it did. It made opportunity very, very easy in a time when that was a new part of the American experience. So it was the American dream in a very small way that became the American dream in a very big way.
The rise of fast food reflected the rise of American economic power after the Second World War. When Adam says that this lies at the heart of the story, he means it's the most important part of the story.
In the 1950s, when the famous brands we know today were just beginning, anyone with a can-do attitude could sell fast food. A can-do attitude describes someone who is confident and determined to fix problems and achieve results.
Which is exactly what happened at successful restaurants like Kentucky Fried Chicken and McDonald's. For many, these fast food brands symbolised the American dream, the idea that anyone in the United States can achieve success through hard work and determination.
The success of KFC, McDonald's and the rest wasn't limited to America. Nowadays, you can visit two McDonald's on opposite sides of the planet and eat exactly the same meal.
But not every country opened its arms in welcome. The tiny island of Iceland, for one. Andy Sophia Fontaine, who used to work in McDonald's, now edits the Iceland Review. Here, she tells BBC World Service programme The Food Chain how McDonald's got a frosty reception when it started selling burgers in Iceland's capital, Reykjavik.
There's been a long-standing burger culture in Iceland. They have their own take on the hamburger, wherein they'll use lettuce and raw cucumbers and a type of fry sauce that's called a sjoppubogari or shop burger. And that's been around for ages. Yeah, so McDonald's, they struggled to try to maintain a market. The final nail in the coffin was the global financial crisis in 2008-2009.
Iceland already had a long-standing tradition of eating burgers, a tradition that had existed for a long time. For example, the sjoppubogari, or shop burger, was a take on, or variation of, the American hamburger.
McDonald's weren't as successful in Iceland as they'd been elsewhere, and the global financial crash of 2008 was the final nail in the coffin, an event which caused the failure of something that had already started to go wrong. To this day, there are no McDonald's in Iceland, unlike Britain, which reminds me of your question, Phil.
Yes, I asked you how many fast food restaurants there are in Britain. I asked you if there were 4,000, 42,000 or 4 million, and of course the answer is 42,000, so you were right. Well done. Okay, let's recap the vocabulary we've learnt, starting with at the heart of, meaning the most important part or the cause of something.
If you say that someone has a can-do attitude, you mean they are confident to take action, fix problems, and deal with new challenges.
The American dream is the belief that everyone in the USA has the opportunity to be successful and happy if they work hard.
The adjective long-standing means having existed for a long time.
A take on something means a variation or new way of presenting it.
And finally, the idiom, the final nail in the coffin, refers to an event that causes the final end of something that had already started to fail. Once again, our 6 minutes are up. But why not head over to the BBC Learning English website where you'll find a worksheet and quiz, especially for this programme. See you there soon.
Goodbye.
6 Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.